Welcome into my mock draft 2.0 part 2. Today we have picks 17 through 32. Yesterday, picks 1 through 16. If you have not seen that yet, go check it out on the channel. And if you watch my first video, you know that we are now allowing trades. We actually had 2 trades within the first 16 picks of the first round. And we got one coming up in this video as well. Let's go ahead and get right into it. We can recap yesterday's picks. Number 1, we had Cam Ward to Tennessee, Abdul Carter to Cleveland, Shadur Sanders to New York, Travis Hunter to the Jets, Mason Graham to the Jags, Jalen Walker to the Raiders, Will Campbell to the Patriots in a trade back. Jets came up, by the way. Miami comes up as well to pick 8 and selects Armand Membo, Mike Green to New Orleans, Jainty to Chicago, Calvin Banks to San Francisco, Tet McMillan to Dallas. Carolina in the trade back with Miami lands Michael Williams, Tyler Warren to the Colts, Jihad Campbell to the Falcons, and Will Johnson to the Cardinals. And that leaves us with the Cincinnati Bengals kicking off today's video. And I have them selecting edge rusher Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M. Trey Hendrickson requested a trade. Sam Hubbard retired. Don't really need to dive too deep more into it. In my last one, I had them selecting Tyler Booker, but I think they're going to need it, a defensive lineman. A guard is a massive need for them after the loss of Alex Kappa, but I believe that they're going to get a good defensive lineman. Both are really viable needs for them. They need interior offensive lineman and they need a defensive edge rusher. And I think they go with Shamar Stewart here. He's an absolute freak athlete, probably the most athletic edge in this draft class. It's just, he lacked production at A&M, which, is worrisome to most. But I have them going Shamar Stewart here, and I have the Seattle Seahawks selecting Gray Zabel, offensive tackle out of North Dakota State. This is also the guy I had them selecting in the first round. A lot of people have been telling me I'm high on Gray Zabel. I think a guy who can play center, guard, and offensive tackle is a guy who deserves to go in the top 20. And they brought in Sam Darnold in free agency. They brought in Cooper Kupp in free agency. They need somebody inside to help protect Sam Darnold because he's coming from a shiny offensive line in Minnesota. Zabel's a guy who can go left to right. You can play left tackle, left guard, center, right guard, right tackle. I think he's going to be much better in the NFL inside, whether they want to play him at center on day one or kick him at left or right guard. I think he's going to do just fine on the interior. I do struggle thinking that he's going to be a top tackle in this draft, but I think he's a guy you can move around on the inside. He's going to be very consistent for a very long time for you. Absolute grinder. I mean, I feel the dude went to North Dakota State. You just got to be a grinder going to North Dakota State. There's not much going on in North Dakota State. I think Gray Zabel's going to be a dog. What was it? Cody Mock? Wasn't that his name coming out a few years ago with the Tampa Bay? Cody Mock, wasn't he from NDSU? Grinder. Legend. Pretty good guy for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Speaking of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we have them at number 19, and I have them selecting. Going to try and say his name correctly. Donovan Izuruwaku out of Boston College, a guy who I have rising in my mock draft 2.0. I just, I see that production out of Boston College, and I think he's going to start slowly getting up there. Hassan Reddick signing will not stop them from going defensive line. Jason Licht has always gone that, and he's always drafted guys with production, and he had some of the best production in college football. I'm a little worried about his size, 6'2", 250, but it's perfect because he could learn from Hassan Reddick, who is also floating around that 6'1", 6'2", and has made it work in the NFL and has managed to build a long career with a lot of success. So I think he's got the perfect partner alongside him. I do worry about both of them being small coming off the edge. It is a small pass rushing duo, but he's got the production. He's got the athleticism. All he needs to do is just translate to the NFL now. And I think Hassan Reddick being on the opposite side of him is going to help. Dodd Bowles is going to get him right. I like the pick. Donovan Izuruwaku out of Boston College. And we have a trade up. And that is going to be the Houston Texans coming up with the Denver Broncos, giving them 25 and whatever. Where, compensation does not matter here because it says the Houston Texans are not interested. Sorry, this is my mock draft. There we go. Trade accepted. Jesus. And they're going to select Josh Simmons, offensive tackle out of Ohio State. Laramie Tunzel, gone. They traded him. Wholeheartedly disagreed with the decision. They brought in Trent Brown, though. They brought in Cam Robinson, and Josh Simmons is one of those versatile guys. A guy who has snaps at right guard, snaps at right tackle, snaps at left tackle. So they can kind of play him where they see fit if they want to give Trent Brown and Cam Robinson the start this year and let Simmons kind of develop in the inside, maybe kick him back out in the future. Or if they just want to make him their day one right tackle, their day one left tackle, I think this is a guy who could probably do it all. He's probably my favorite true tackle in the NFL, but I just like his versatility. A guy can go inside and play it at a very high level. If he didn't get hurt, I very well believe that Josh Simmons probably would have been a 5 to 10 pick. He was having a great start to his season at Ohio State. Unfortunately, the injury is going to cause him to slip to 20. But overall, I really do like Josh Simmons a lot to Houston. I think this is going to be a great selection for them, for a team who's kind of made some iffy moves over the last few weeks. I really hated the Laramie Tunzel trade, but this makes me feel a whole lot better for it. They come up and get Josh Simmons. Pittsburgh Steelers, I have them selecting running back Omarion Hampton, a guy I did not have in my mock 1.0. But with the loss of Najee Harris, I think that, they're going to jump all over Omarion Hampton, a guy who's been creeping up the draft boards. Hampton is a very strong runner. He's a guy who can carry the workload of an entire run game. He's just an absolute battering ram. I think he's going to complement Jaylen Warren very well. I think it's only going to help benefit Jaylen Warren's production. I think he's going to be better than Najee Harris. But my only worry about him is he just doesn't have that extra gear to him. He has the burst. He can hit that hole very fast. But you really see with the elite running backs, they have that extra gear. They have the burst to hit the hole, and then they can really turn on the burners. He just doesn't have the burners. He's kind of a one-speed back. He's going to hit that hole, and he's going to hit it hard. He's going to run some people over doing it, but I don't think he's going to be the type to break away from the defensive back. That's kind of my worry about him because, like I said before in my first video with Ashton Jainty, I worry about selecting running backs in the first round. Number 22 overall, I have the Los Angeles Chargers selecting Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle out of Michigan, somebody who I had the Chargers selecting in my mock draft 1.0. I touched on it last time. I don't really need to go over it too much if you guys watched my first mock draft, but Harbaugh's going to take his boy here. The interior of their defensive line is missing somebody like this, a guy who's just going to swallow up opposing offensive lines. He's not a freak athlete, but he does have that elite strength and size that you were looking for in your defensive tackle. Khalil Mack coming off the edge. They lost Joey Bosa, but they need to really bolster up that defensive interior. And Kenneth Grant, Harbaugh's boy, is perfect. I like this pick. And then that leaves us with the Green Bay Packers at 23. And I also have the Green Bay Packers selecting the same player that I had them drafting in mock draft 1.0, and that is Jahdae Barron, DB out of Texas. Jaire Alexander, still a Packer. I think that's still looming. I think that could be a guy who is traded after this pick is made. But if Nate Hobbs is your only key addition to your secondary when Jaire Alexander could very well be gone, that doesn't necessarily sit right with me. I think Nate Hobbs is solid. I don't think he's good. And I think adding Jahdae Barron to your secondary is a good choice. I would feel a whole lot better about it. Trust me. I don't think the Packers want Nate Hobbs to be their best DB moving forward if they eventually trade Jaire Alexander. Barron's got the size. He's got that 4.3 speed. They're in a division with a lot of good receivers. I think it'd be very smart to focus on DB here. I know everybody wants them to draft a wide receiver. That has not really been the Packers' style when it comes to the first round. I know everybody's talking about them drafting defensive line, edge rusher. Another thing where I think that I would be more worried about their secondary than I would be about their defensive line. While they don't really have a true elite game changer on their defensive line, it is deep. Lucas Van Ness hasn't really played out, but they still got Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark. I'm more worried about their secondary than I am their defensive line. And staying in the NFC North, we have the Minnesota Vikings, and they're going to select Malachi Starks out of Georgia. Listen, the Vikings were heavy in on Javon Holland. Harrison Smith is not getting any younger, and Malachi Starks has that perfect size, physicality, and speed, the instincts to perfectly fit into Brian Flores' defense. He can come in and be a day one starter over the top for them. And just having someone like Harrison Smith there to help him grow and learn the position is huge. It's huge. They whiffed on Lewisine a few years ago. Injuries piled up for him. It didn't really work out. This one works out 100%, I think. And the Denver Broncos now in the trade back, and I have them selecting wide receiver out of Ohio State, Emeka Egbuka. And this is a guy who's going to thrive in Sean Payton's system. He's going to come in, be their day one slot machine. That's really what Bo Nix has been missing. He's going to be his grace over the middle. He's going to complement Cortland Sutton very well. And Bo Nix is going to have a lot of weapons. Emeka Egbuka is a very reliable guy. I don't think he is a true wide receiver one in the NFL, but I think he's going to be a slot dog for the Broncos. And if you watch my wide receiver landing spot video where I talked about Cooper Kupp, wide receivers over the middle always thrive in Sean Payton's system. Emeka Egbuka is going to thrive for the Denver Broncos. He's going to make Bo Nix's life so much easier when it comes to throwing the ball over the middle. Moving on to pick 26, we have the Los Angeles Rams, and I have them drafting tight end out of Michigan, Colston Loveland. He's going to be a massive weapon for Sean McVay. We've seen Tyler Higbee have a lot of success in this system, and Colston Loveland is twice the player, in my opinion, than Tyler Higbee is. Devontae Adams is there. Puka Nacua is there, so he's not going to come in and be an immediate threat to opposing defenses, but he is a matchup nightmare for linebackers. He's got that speed. He's got that size. You can move him outside, play him in the slot. He can play all over the field. You know, I talked about it in my mock draft 1.0. He does play a little small, so I worry about the physicality being too much for him if he's matched up against linebackers. But this guy is a hell of a route runner. He is your more modern day tight end. And if there's any fantasy guys listening to this, specifically dynasty guys, this guy might be like a top 5 pick. No bullshit. If he lands in LA, I would consider drafting him top 5. I think he's going to be an elite weapon, a Sam Laporta to Detroit kind of play here. I think he could very well go before this, but if he lands in LA, I'm going to be all over that. And number 27 overall, I have the Baltimore Ravens selecting edge rusher out of Texas A&M, Nick Scourton, somebody I did not have going in my first mock draft. But these edge rushers, you know, these late first, early second edge rushers, they'll either creep their way in or they'll creep their way out. I have Nick Scourton in my mock draft 2.0, creeping his way in. Baltimore could use some edge depth. It's as simple as that. My last one, I had them going James Pierce Jr. This time I think they go Nick Scourton. More of a safer pick. I don't think his ceiling is as high as James Pierce Jr.'s, but I think he's going to maybe have a better floor than James Pierce Jr. He's got very good power. He plays his tail off. He always seemed to find himself in the middle of destruction on the field. He's also got a very good pass rush set. He's very detailed in his approach. The swim move off the charts. I like Nick Scourton a lot. I think he's been really creeping up my boards as of late as I've been watching more of his film. And I just see Baltimore going in a different direction other than James Pierce Jr. But I do have Detroit now selecting James Pierce Jr. at 28 overall. It's no secret that the Lions have been aiming to bolster their defensive line for some time now. Injuries really rampaged through their defense last year. So I would assume their approach to the draft is going to be defense, maybe. Obviously, not that extent, but they need more depth at these positions, you know, especially losing like Carlton Davis, other guys, Zadarius Smith. They need to improve their depth defensively. James Pierce Jr., a very highly touted player. Last year, a lot of people thought he was going to be the number 1 overall pick in this year's draft. Horrible 2024 season, lacked a lot of production. Off-field issues are worrying some teams, character concerns, stuff like that. If there's any coach in the NFL, there's a few, but if there's any coach who I believe can handle that and put that drive into that player, it's Dan Campbell, Kevin Shepard as well. I think we all saw the hard knocks of Kevin Shepard. He's a mean son of a bitch. Both those guys are going to have, you know, their locker room, tight-knit, loving football, shit like that. James Pierce Jr., he's going to come in, have an immediate impact. You got Aiden Hutchinson on the other side of him, going to take some of that pressure off of him. And I think they're really going to be able to get him to that ceiling because he's got a high ceiling. He does have a very high ceiling. He's extremely talented. Number 29 overall, I have the Washington Commanders selecting offensive guard out of Alabama, Tyler Booker. They traded for Laramie Tunzel. They're really trying to bolster up that offensive line. Booker is 100% good enough to step in, replace Nick Allegretti on the left side. No doubt about it. Allegretti's good enough where if they want to wait a year and keep Booker on the bench, that's okay. But I think he's a guy who is much better than Nick Allegretti. Can come in, have that immediate impact, be that upgrade over Allegretti. And Tyler Booker's a guy who wants to kill people. He is an absolute mauler. He is not a freak athlete, but when Tyler Booker is on the field, he wants to kill people. He is a mauler. His goal is to destroy. Moving on to pick 30 with the Buffalo Bills, I have them selecting defensive back out of Kentucky, Maxwell Hairston, somebody who was not in my mock draft 1.0. They traded away Khair Elam to the Dallas Cowboys, and the Bills are in need of depth all over their defense. They had a really solid defense last year, but they need more depth at these positions of need. Hairston's really only bad trait is that he is an absolute liability in the run game. He is not a good run defender whatsoever. 4.2 speed, though. Really good coverage back in both man and zone. And there's a lot of speed in that division. They play the Miami Dolphins twice a year. Devon Achane, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. They need a guy who can keep up with those guys. And Hairston can do so. I think he's going to come in, fit very well into Sean McDermott's system. Like I said, I am a little bit worried about him being an absolute liability in the run game. He is not a good run defender. Something that can be worked on, though. So I really like the pick here. Flying up my boards. No longer that early second, mid-second guy. I think he's going to find his way into being a late first-round pick. Number 31 overall, we have defensive tackle from Ole Miss, and that is Walter Nolan. Nolan slipped a little bit from my 1.0 after free agency, but I still think 31 is a little low for him. This is just how I have my draft board falling in 2.0. His production at Ole Miss was very good. He's a really good athlete. Nolan's going to be able to come in, be a great rotational piece, maybe even get a lot more valuable reps than most would think alongside Chris Jones. Chris Jones is going to be a great mentor for him. I really love the pick to the Kansas City Chiefs here. Walter Nolan at 31. And last but not least, the Philadelphia Eagles selecting Derek Harmon, defensive tackle from Oregon. Listen, the Eagles' defensive line got raided in free agency, and that's what happens when you have a really good team, a lot of depth, a lot of good players. You can't pay them all. So a lot of these guys are eventually going to get money with other teams. They lost Milton Williams, and they replace him in the first round at pick 32 with defensive tackle Derek Harmon. Very powerful player. Will have a lot of moments of disruption. I think there's going to be a few times this year where you just see him absolutely body some interior offensive linemen, putting them on their ass. Vic Fangio, one of the best defensive minds of our lifetime. He's going to have a field day with him. All of his defensive lines have been elite. I think back to my 2018 Chicago Bears all the time. Eddie Goldman, Akeem Hicks, two absolute game wreckers on the inside. I think Derek Harmon could be that to Jalen Carter, who is, very similar to Akeem Hicks from the 2018 Bears. So I think he could be that Eddie Goldman kind of player for the Philadelphia Eagles. But that's going to go ahead and wrap up my mock draft 2.0. I will slowly scroll on this one for you guys here. If you guys tuned into yesterday's video, all happened here on the left side. On the right side today, we had 17, Shamar Stewart, 18, Gray Zabel, Bucks select Donovan Izuaku, Texans select Josh Simmons, Steelers select Omarion Hampton, Kenneth Grant to the Chargers, Packers get Jahdae Barron, Malachi Starks to Minnesota, Denver in the trade back with Houston gets Emeka Egbuka, Rams get Colston Loveland, Ravens get Nick Scourton, Lions get James Pierce Jr., Commanders get Tyler Booker, Bills get Maxwell Hairston, Chiefs get Walter Nolan, and the Eagles get Derek Harmon. But that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Thank you guys so much for tuning into another video. I hope you guys like my mock draft 2.0. Leave a comment below on your thoughts. Did you disagree with some picks? Did you see some other guys going elsewhere? Let me know down below in the comments. Thank you guys so much for tuning into another video. We got a lot of draft content coming out over the next few weeks. Mock draft 3.0 will be out on April 21st. Just a mere 4 days before the NFL draft begins. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.